The moonlight spilled across the still waters of Oval Lake, casting its reflection on the isolated island that held Princess Diana's tomb. The atmosphere was heavy and silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for a truth to be revealed. Then, when the coffin lid was lifted, the room seemed to stop breathing. Inside, 2 photographs were discovered. One captured Diana embracing her sons, William and Harry, in a warm, protective hug. But the other left everyone in stunned silence. A wedding photo torn in 2. Leaving only Diana's image, Charles's portion was gone. William stood frozen, his gaze locked, paralyzed by grief and haunting memories. The scene felt like a merciless reminder of the tragedies that had torn the royal family apart. Was this Diana's final message? Or had someone deliberately arranged it to confront the royal family with a painful truth? Type 1. If you believe it was Diana's wish, or 2 if you think it was another scheme. To understand the shock, we must go back to 1997, when the world was shaken by the loss of a global icon named Diana. On August 31st, 1997, the world was stunned by the news that Princess Diana had died in a tragic car accident in Paris. The news traveled faster than time itself, turning a regular morning for millions into a moment they would never forget. Broadcasters across 5 continents cut their programming, and images of the crumpled car in the Alma Tunnel became a heart-wrenching symbol of a closing era. It was not just the death of a royal, but the passing of a woman who had touched the hearts of people worldwide with her sincerity, compassion, and an unforgettable smile. Just 1 week later, on September 6th, 1997, Diana's funeral took place, instantly becoming the largest televised event in history. More than 2.5 billion people around the globe followed every moment on screen, while millions poured into London, transforming the city into a sea of white flowers. Outside Kensington Palace, where Diana had lived, over 1 million bouquets were laid at the black iron gates, an image permanently etched into collective memory. The Spencer family, Diana's own lineage, received over 20,000 condolence letters, an unimaginable number, yet still insufficient to contain the grief of millions who shared Diana's heartbeat. After the funeral, a major decision was made. Diana would not be buried in the Spencer family plot, as tradition dictated. Instead, she was laid to rest at Althorpe Estate, a 5,000-hectare property in Northamptonshire where she had spent her childhood. And not just anywhere on the estate, but on a small island in the middle of Oval Lake. The reason was both symbolic and protective. It would be a permanent, secluded resting place, shielded from the noisy world, where Diana could rest in peace forever. Immediately after the funeral, the bridge to the island was removed, leaving only the tranquil waters surrounding it, transforming Oval Lake into a sacred, untouchable space. 4 years later, in 2001, the tomb underwent its first major restoration. The Spencer family worried that natural elements and the passage of time might damage the structure, though the work was carried out quietly and without public announcement. News leaked, stirring public curiosity once more. Many wondered if something unusual lay inside, or if it was merely routine maintenance, but lacking evidence. All speculation was shrouded by the silence of the royal family and the Spencers. It was not until 2017, 20 years after their mother's death, that Princes William and Harry publicly shared their emotions. In the documentary Diana, our mother. Both admitted they had never fully overcome the grief. William said there wasn't a day he didn't think of his mother. Harry confessed to experiencing a severe mental crisis, even seeking therapy to cope with the loss. It was a rare glimpse of the princes breaking their silence, revealing the weight of her death 2 decades on. Yet time marches forward. In 2025, 28 years after Diana's passing, an unprecedented decision was made: to reopen the tomb on Oval Lake. The official reason was straightforward: to inspect, restore, and preserve the legacy. Nearly 3 decades of weather, water, and the passage of time had taken their toll on the structure. Althorpe Estate draws thousands of visitors each year, and its preservation was not only a family matter, but also a cultural imperative, as Diana had become a global heritage. Yet behind the official explanation, the public raised countless questions. No one truly believed that reopening Diana's coffin was merely a technical procedure. Diana's allure had never faded. For more than 20 years, millions still flocked to Althorpe on commemorative days, leaving flowers, sending letters, and speaking of her as a living icon. And precisely because of that enduring public devotion, the pressure on the Spencer family to be transparent, to confront questions that had never been answered, was immense. Was it truly just about preservation? Or were there documents, keepsakes, even evidence that needed to be brought to light? One thing was certain: the 2025 reopening was not the same as in 2001. In today's world, ambiguous explanations would not suffice. Social media, global news outlets, millions of watchful eyes, any small detail could instantly spark a storm. This was why many believed that this reopening carried other undertones: political, public, and possibly truths that the royal family had long preferred to keep hidden. And then, as the door to the past was cracked open, what emerged was far more than a tomb in need of restoration. It was the starting point of a shocking revelation, a truth that demanded silence from both the British royal family and the world. And it was during the 2025 restoration that the most shocking secret finally came to light. That night, the sky above Althorpe was a cold, steely gray. Moonlight shimmered across the waters of Oval Lake, where Princess Diana had rested for nearly 3 decades. The air was heavy and tense, so much so that even the slightest whisper of wind across the grass seemed like the murmurs of witnessing spirits. On the small island at the center of the lake, pale yellow light from torches and specialized lamps illuminated the tense faces of archaeologists and conservators tasked with reopening the coffin to inspect and preserve her legacy. Everyone understood they were not merely standing before a grave. They were standing before an immortal symbol of the 20th century. That awareness made the atmosphere almost suffocating. Every breath felt restrained. As the specialized drills began to hum, the sound reverberated through the silent night, metal scraping against cold stone, gentle knocks that echoed as if striking directly into the hearts of those present. Everyone held their breath, not daring to speak. Even inhalations came out sharp and hesitant. Some bowed their heads in silent prayer. Others clenched their hands tightly, palms sweaty despite the icy air. The focused beams of flashlights glimmered across the oak lid of the coffin, the rare wood carefully selected by the Spencer family in 1997. Dust of decades clung to its surface. Every tiny crack was revealed in stark detail under the lights. Each step closer to the coffin felt like a test, for everyone knew this moment could alter history, potentially unveiling secrets the world had speculated about for years. The lead conservator signaled, his hands trembling but resolute. Tools were arranged neatly. The final screws were ready to be removed. In that instant, time seemed to freeze. The surrounding space fell completely silent. The only sound, the pounding of each heartbeat. Moonlight shone on the lake, reflecting as if thousands of eyes were watching. Even nature seemed to hold its breath. Then, as the coffin lid began to shift, a low, hollow sound resonated, like a sigh emerging from the earth itself. A cold wind swept through the gap, causing the torches to flicker wildly. The experts were motionless, eyes fixed on the pivotal moment. They knew this was more than lifting a wooden lid. It was reopening a chapter of history that had lain dormant for 28 years. When the coffin lid was fully lifted, a rush of cold air escaped, carrying with it the musty scent of time. Undisturbed for nearly 3 decades. The flickering torchlight and specialized lamps revealed carefully arranged personal effects beside the remains. No one dared speak. These were not ordinary objects. They were fragments of a life both tragic and magnificent. The first person to step forward lifted a string of rosary beads with trembling white-gloved hands. The beads, dulled with age yet still glinting in the light, seemed to hold thousands of silent prayers within them. It was the rosary once gifted to Diana by the Pope, a symbol of faith and comfort she had clung to during her loneliest years. As the strand was raised, it quivered softly, emitting a faint, clicking whisper, like an echo from Diana's final days. Everyone bowed their heads, the atmosphere solemn, almost like a prayer ceremony. Nearby lay a few old letters, yellowed with age. Diana's slanted handwriting still clear, soft, and full of feeling. No one dared read them aloud, but merely seeing them revived the past. They were said to be letters to close friends, to her mother, and perhaps to her 2 young sons. Each letter was like a fragment of her soul, as if she were still whispering from beyond. The experts carefully lifted each envelope, placing them in specially designed preservation boxes. Yet their eyes seemed unable to leave the handwriting, both stunned and choked with emotion. A young specialist gently touched the edge of one envelope, his eyes red, as though in that instant he had ceased to be a cold archaeologist and had become a witness confronting an enduring loss. No one spoke. Yet everyone could feel the weight of emotion pressed into these old sheets. These were more than keepsakes. They were evidence of a soul that had longed for love, but had never been fully embraced. These artifacts, though humble, evoked a deep, haunting resonance. The rosary, symbol of faith. The letters, emblems of loneliness and yearning for connection. Together, they reflected a truth. Behind the radiant image of the people's princess was a woman who had struggled with sorrow and betrayal. All of this made the air heavier still, a forewarning that even greater secrets awaited revelation. As the light from the lamps penetrated deeper into the coffin, one expert let out a soft gasp, lifting a small object that carried more weight than anything before it, a photograph. In it, Princess Diana sat between her 2 sons, William and Harry, arms wrapped tightly around them, her face radiant with a gentle smile. Her eyes shone with unconditional love, tender yet proud, seemingly determined to shield her boys from the storms of life. William was around 10, Harry barely 8. Seeing the photo, no one could restrain their emotion. One expert whispered, "This is the real her, a mother, first and foremost." In that moment, the air in the tomb seemed to thicken. The tiny photo carried immense weight, recalling the image of the two boys silently walking behind their mother's coffin at her 1997 funeral, eyes heavy with grief that the world would never forget. Placed alongside the letters, the story became clear. Diana was not just a princess. She was a mother whose love transcended death, becoming an immortal symbol. Viewed from the present, the photo was even more haunting. William had grown into the Prince of Wales, bearing the weight of inheriting the throne, yet his eyes still bore the mark of childhood loss. Harry had distanced himself from the royal family, choosing a controversial personal path. But deep down, he remained the boy scarred by losing his mother too soon. Looking at the photo, one could not help but wonder, had Diana sensed the struggles her sons would face? Leaving this keepsake as a message that her love would endure, no matter what. Yet the shock did not end there. Beneath the heartwarming family photo, the experts discovered another image, a wedding photo once admired worldwide. It captured Diana in her resplendent white gown, walking beside Prince Charles at St. Paul's Cathedral on 29th of July, 1901. But what stunned everyone was that the photograph had been torn in two. Charles had vanished, leaving only Diana in her flowing wedding dress, her face radiant yet tinged with innocence. No one spoke, for all understood the symbolism. A torn photo was more than a destroyed piece of paper. It was a silent indictment of a marriage steeped in tears. It recalled the betrayal the world had come to know, while millions believed in a fairy tale. Camilla had always existed in the shadows, the third party Diana had bitterly called the one who intruded upon her life. It is almost unimaginable. That wedding once drew 750 million viewers around the globe, making it the most anticipated royal event of the century. Yet just 11 years later, in 1992, Charles and Diana officially separated, and by 1996, their fairy tale marriage ended with a cold, impersonal divorce decree. The world was stunned, and Diana, the woman in the iconic wedding dress celebrated as the people's princess, was left alone. The torn wedding photograph, leaving only Diana's image, serves as a painful metaphor. It tells not only of a family fractured, but also stands as vivid evidence of the betrayal she endured. For many, it reads as a message from beyond. Diana wanted future generations to see the truth, that the radiant smile on her wedding day had been a mask, concealing a reality of lies and tears. The moment the torn wedding photo was held up to the dim light of the tomb, the entire room seemed frozen. It was no longer merely a keepsake. It was a silent yet powerful indictment, a private testament Diana had left for posterity. Each rip in the photo seemed to reveal the unhealed wounds of a marriage gone awry. The remaining half, showing only Diana, her gaze gentle yet heavy with sorrow, seemed to speak to the world. She had walked alone through a union that should have been shared. That torn image carries meaning far beyond a personal memento. It raises profound questions about the truth behind royal walls, the pain Diana suffered, and the betrayal etched into history. If the rosary and letters were evidence of a fragile soul seeking spiritual solace, the torn wedding photo was a clear accusation. It voiced the anguish of a woman abandoned, betrayed, and excluded from the very story in which she was meant to be the central figure. One recalls 1981, when 750 million people around the globe watched the fairy tale wedding of Diana and Charles, believing they were witnessing the most beautiful love story of the century. Yet just 11 years later, harsh reality emerged. Diana and Charles separated. By 1996, the marriage formally ended with a divorce decree. The fairy tale shattered, leaving millions heartsick. That torn photo is a tragic summary of this entire journey. Many believe Diana deliberately preserved the photo in its torn state, as a record of the truth. It marks not just the separation of two people, but the boundary between light and shadow, between public perception and the backstage reality of power. Charles and Camilla, absent from the remaining image, were nevertheless present in every fissure of the photograph. The image is so haunting that some experts have called it Diana's silent testimony. From that moment, it became clear that what had been found was more than mere keepsakes. It was a message to future generations, a message of love, betrayal, and the cost of concealing royal secrets for too long. But the shock did not end there. What truly shook the world and drew all eyes to Diana's tomb was not just the photographs, but the agonized reaction of Prince William when he himself touched this shattered piece of memory. The moment the torn wedding photo was brought into the light, the room seemed to freeze. William stood there, eyes unblinking, his usually composed face tense, lips pressed tight as if restraining a storm of emotion. He could not believe that before him was a part of the past he had tried to bury for nearly 3 decades. All sounds seemed to vanish, leaving only the pounding of his heart, each beat like a blade reopening old wounds. In that instant, William seemed to travel back in time to his childhood in the grand yet shadowed palace, to the countless times he had seen his mother sitting alone, silently crying in a room both lavish and cold. He remembered evenings when the laughter in the halls had faded, and he had tiptoed into her room to see Diana by the window, moonlight casting her tear-streaked face. The clumsy embrace of a small boy had done nothing to heal the scars in her heart, and could not alter a harsh reality. His parents' marriage was unraveling. That torn wedding photograph now felt like a cut into the soul itself, a merciless testament that those bitter memories were undeniable truth. William had once believed time could heal these wounds, that growing up, marrying, and having children would allow the past to rest. Yet now, staring at the photo, he understood that those wounds had never truly healed. They had only been hidden, waiting for a moment to flare into pain. He remembered 31st of August, 1997, when devastating news from Paris struck. The 15-year-old boy collapsed in grief. His mother was gone, taking with her all the tenderness he had known, leaving a void no one could fill. And now, during the reopening of the tomb, he faced haunting proof of her unhappy life. A stark reminder that Diana had lived with loneliness and betrayal until her final days. William remained silent, his eyes red and brimming, his breath quickening. The experts present could all sense the quiet collapse of a man destined to be king. Behind the familiar mask of strength and resolve, he was still just a son who had lost his mother, still haunted by the inability to shield her from mounting pain. For William, the torn photograph was more than a keepsake. It was a knife cutting straight into memory, forcing him once again to confront the truth that Diana had never been fully loved within the royal marriage, that she had departed carrying an unspoken grievance. That very truth made his whole body tremble, as if the weight of history and family tragedy pressed down upon his already weary shoulders. While William stood frozen in the darkened room, Harry was thousands of miles away in the United States. But upon learning of the discoveries in the tomb, his emotions erupted violently. Anger mixed with regret surged through him like an unquenchable fire. For years, Harry had struggled with the feeling of being sidelined in the royal family, always living in the shadow of his elder brother, the heir. Every letter, every memento, every photograph from the past suddenly became a harsh reminder that he had never truly belonged, that the losses of his childhood remained etched into his mind. Seeing the photo of Diana holding William and Harry felt the echo of his own childhood pain, the days of witnessing his mother's sadness, unable to hide her despair, moments when the young boy only wished for an embrace to cling to, yet found himself left behind. The image of his mother and brother, whole and intact in the photograph, made Harry confront the stark contrast in their lives. William would inherit the throne and shoulder royal responsibility, while Harry remained on the sidelines, a boy who had longed for love, yet received only deprivation. Memories flooded back unbidden. He remembered the careless words, the uncomforting glances, the futile attempts to fit in that left him feeling isolated in the palace. Each discovered keepsake now acted like a shard of glass reflecting a painful past. The torn wedding photo, separating Charles from Diana, intensified the sense of abandonment and deep-seated hurt that he had carried all along. He understood that his mother had not only left a void, but also a message about betrayal, about a family once fractured by choices and secrets he could never fully comprehend. Yet Harry was not merely angry. He felt compelled to speak out, to make the world see the truth Diana had kept in her heart. In that moment, despite the thousands of miles between them, Harry and William were bound by the same pain, one facing the reality firsthand, the other feeling the weight of memory from afar. Both understood that the photographs were more than personal mementos. They were a wordless message about maternal love, betrayal, and the losses the family had once endured. Harry's reaction quickly spread across the media, igniting a global conversation. Millions followed the story, sharing emotions, debating, and questioning the meaning of the photos. For Harry, it was a moment when personal pain intersected with the force of public scrutiny, creating an undercurrent that commanded the world's attention. What had long been hidden suddenly came alive. And Harry, despite being thousands of miles away, became the emotional focal point in the story Diana had left for posterity. As news of the mementos discovered in Diana's tomb spread, global media erupted. Outlets in the UK, the US, and other nations ran sensational headlines emphasizing the shock and symbolism of the two photographs. Royal commentators, experts, and journalists dissected every detail: the torn wedding photo, the rosary, the personal letters. They speculated endlessly. Was this Diana's silent farewell to her sons and the world, or the result of someone orchestrating events to highlight secrets long buried? On social media, the hashtag #HatDiana photo quickly trended worldwide on Twitter/X. Users split into factions. One side believed it was Diana's final message, a reminder to the royal family that betrayal and suffering had existed within her marriage. They shared emotional posts, recounted the childhood of the princes, recalled the 1997 funeral, and honored Diana, the people's princess, a symbol of maternal love and courage. The other side questioned the authenticity and purpose of these mementos appearing in the tomb. They suspected that someone within the royal family, or those managing Diana's estate, may have orchestrated the display to generate public reaction, apply pressure, or convey a deeper political message. Analysts examined every detail: the torn photo, the arrangement of the items, the lighting in the tomb during the exhumation, and even William's emotional expressions witnessing it all. Millions read, commented, and shared, creating an unprecedented wave of debate. People across the UK, the United States, and around the world wanted to understand, what was Diana truly trying to convey? And why had these photographs remained torn in half for 28 years? Online communities extended these theories into other royal narratives: the relationship between Charles and Camilla, the pressures faced by William and Harry, and the painful decisions that had never been made public. Royal historians joined the conversation, noting that leaving personal mementos in tombs has long been considered a way to communicate messages to future generations. But no photograph had ever caused such shock. Over 1 million people once laid flowers at Kensington Palace, and 20,000 condolence letters attested to Diana's influence. Yet now the torn wedding photograph breathed new life into her story, prompting the world to reflect on the life and legacy she left behind. Debate and speculation over who had left these items in Diana's tomb quickly became a global focal point, with public opinion questioning whether this was a deliberate act by Diana herself or a calculated move by those around her. The first, and most emotionally resonant, hypothesis is that Diana herself requested these mementos be preserved. Her diaries and personal letters, which chronicled the quiet pain in her marriage, the betrayal of her spouse, and the lonely days she endured despite royal grandeur, functioned as a silent indictment. The torn wedding photograph, preserving only Diana, became a symbol of her self-liberation, a private message only those who truly loved and understood her could feel. If this hypothesis is correct, Diana not only sought to preserve the image of herself as a mother with her children, but also to convey a painful truth: that love and marriage can be forced into unjust frameworks, and only she fully understood how deeply betrayal had wounded her. The second hypothesis emphasizes the role of the Spencer family. Long known for their loyalty to Diana and their opposition to Charles during the breakdown of the marriage. The Spencers had repeatedly defended Diana's honor against both the media and the royal family. It is not difficult to imagine that in managing her estate, they ensured these crucial mementos were preserved or placed precisely to send a message to future generations. Leaving the torn photograph could have been their way of underscoring the suffering Diana endured while asserting that, although the monarchy controls power and media, her dignity and memory would never be forgotten. They wanted the world to remember Diana not merely as a fashion icon or a beautiful princess, but as a mother, and a woman who courageously faced tragedy and injustice. The third hypothesis expands the discussion to possible conspiracies from within the royal family. Some analysts suggest that the public display of these mementos could be a deliberate move to exert political pressure, shock public opinion, or even cast doubt on Camilla. The timing, when Camilla had already become queen consort, led many to see this as a strategy to recall Diana and the unrest of the past. If such a plot existed, it would not only influence public trust, but also raise questions about power, information control, and the complex relationships behind palace doors. Despite efforts to craft a public image, Camilla faced renewed skepticism from both the public and royal insiders, and the appearance of these mementos only highlighted the gap between public image and private reality. Recent data further underscores Diana's enduring influence. A survey in the UK found that 60% of respondents considered Diana the true queen in their hearts, far surpassing anyone holding an official title. Meanwhile, over 45% expressed opposition to Camilla becoming queen consort in 2023, reflecting persistent public doubts about power and acceptance of the current queen. These figures not only demonstrate Diana's lasting influence, but also the psychological and political impact of the newly discovered mementos, intensifying debates over their origin and meaning. Global public reaction erupted into an unprecedented wave of controversy. On social media, the hashtag #DianaLegacy went viral, generating millions of comments, shares, and discussions. Conversations extended beyond the mementos themselves to previously undisclosed aspects of royal life, the complicated relationships between Charles, Camilla, and the princes, and secrets kept for decades. Public responses reflected a mixture of empathy and curiosity, a desire to uncover the truth about Diana's life, and questions about morality and power within the monarchy. Regardless of which hypothesis is true, the facts remain partially in shadow, but one thing is certain. This discovery has reshaped global perceptions of the royal family, once again bringing them into Diana's shadow. The photographs, letters, and mementos are not only evidence of the past, but also a powerful reminder that Diana lives on in memory, in hearts, and in thought. Her legacy is not merely an image, but a symbol of justice, maternal love, and timeless strength. Though Diana has been gone for nearly 30 years, what she left behind continues to make both the royal family and the world pause and reflect. The torn wedding photograph is not just a reminder of a shattered marriage. It is a silent testament to the maternal love she held for William and Harry, a love that endures. Even amid controversy, prejudice, and the shadows of royal history, her presence persists, ensuring her sons cannot forget what their mother endured. And now, looking at that photograph, one cannot help but ask, what message was Diana sending? Was it a cry that remained unheard, or her final message to her sons about love and loyalty to oneself? That question lingers, making Diana's memory not merely a matter of history, but a vivid, haunting presence in the hearts and minds of the world.